There is a specific kind of exhaustion that does not come from working too hard or sleeping too little. It comes from carrying something heavy for too long without any sign that the weight was worth it. If you know that exhaustion, if you have been holding on, pushing through, staying faithful to a path that has asked everything of you while giving back very little, then what I am about to tell you is not just something you want to hear. It is something the universe has been preparing to deliver. The karmic ledger does not forget. It does not lose track. And this week, for a very specific group of people, the accounting is finally being settled. Most people misunderstand how karmic repayment actually works. They imagine it as a vending machine. You put in goodness, you press a button, and something good immediately comes out. And when it does not work that way, they conclude that the whole system is broken, that effort is meaningless, that the people who cut corners and hurt others and moved through the world with reckless selfishness somehow got away with it, while the ones who chose integrity and patience and quiet endurance ended up with nothing to show for it. That conclusion is understandable. It is also wrong. The universe does not operate on human impatience. It operates on a timeline that is far longer, far more precise, and far more just than anything the anxious mind can track from the inside of a painful chapter. Karmic repayment does not always arrive as a single dramatic moment where everything reverses at once. Sometimes it does, and when it does, it is undeniable. But more often, it arrives as a shift, a subtle but irreversible change in the direction of things. A door that opens where there was only wall before. A person who arrives carrying exactly what you needed. A circumstance that resolves itself in a way that would have seemed impossible just a few weeks earlier. If you're not paying attention, if you're still braced for disappointment because disappointment has been the dominant weather of your recent life, you might miss it at first, which is why this video exists right now for you today, so that when the repayment begins to arrive, you are awake enough to receive it. Subscribe and like this video if you are someone who has been enduring quietly and waiting with more faith than you have been given credit for. Stay with me until the end. Because this is not a video about blind optimism or spiritual bypassing. This is a video about understanding the real mechanics of how karmic energy actually moves, why the timing is specific to this week, and what you need to do to position yourself to receive rather than deflect what is coming your way. You have waited long enough. The information in the next several minutes could change how you enter tomorrow. Let us start with the energetic reason why this particular window is so significant for karmic settlement. We are currently moving through a rare alignment between Saturn, the planet of consequence, accountability, and long-term results, and Jupiter, the planet of expansion, reward, and divine timing. When these two planetary forces align, the principle at work is simple but profound. What was earned is delivered, not what was wished for, not what was demanded, what was genuinely, patiently, consistently earned through real action in the real world, often without applause, often without witnesses, often in circumstances that tested the limits of what a person can endure with grace intact. Saturn does not reward performance. It does not reward the appearance of doing the right thing. It rewards the actual doing. The choices made in private when no one was watching. The integrity maintained during the stretches when maintaining it cost something real. The compassion extended to people who did not deserve it and never acknowledged it. The promises kept to yourself, even when breaking them would have been so much easier. Every single one of those moments was registered, recorded, weighted. And the Jupiter influence arriving now is the force that distributes what Saturn has been holding in trust. This is not metaphor. This is the most literal description of how cosmic accounting functions, and the numbers are being settled this week. Now let us talk about the people this karmic payment is specifically arriving for. Because not everyone is in the same position in this cycle, and it is important to understand where you stand. The first group is people who endured betrayal without becoming bitter. If you were lied to, abandoned, taken advantage of, or deeply disappointed by someone you trusted, and you chose at some point to release the resentment rather than carry it permanently into every new experience, you belong to this group. That release was not weakness. It was not naivety. It was one of the most energetically costly and spiritually significant choices a human being can make. And the universe does not treat that kind of choice as ordinary. It treats it as extraordinary. The return on that investment is arriving now in forms that will make sense as they appear, even if they are not exactly what you expected. The second group is people who stayed true to something when staying true was genuinely costly. A value, a vision, a standard of how they wanted to live or work or love, that they refused to compromise even when compromising would have made everything temporarily easier. These are the people who said no to shortcuts that would have worked, who walked away from situations that offered comfort at the price of their integrity, who kept building something real in a world that was constantly offering them something fast and hollow instead. If you have been the person in your circle who people call idealistic, too principled, too stubborn about things that no one else seems to care about, this is the week where the universe shows you that your stubbornness was actually precision. And precision in the karmic ledger earns compound interest. The third group is perhaps the most quietly heroic, the people who kept showing up for others during a period when no one was consistently showing up for them, the ones who gave energy, attention, time, love, support, and presence to people and situations that were not giving it back in equal measure. Not because they were naive about the imbalance, but because something in them could not make the choice to withhold care even when the math did not favor them. This is the group that is most at risk of missing their karmic repayment when it arrives, because they have been conditioned by experience to expect that giving leads to depletion rather than return. So when the return begins to arrive, they almost do not believe it. They wait for the catch. They brace for the disappointment that must be just around the corner. If this is you, please hear this clearly. There is no catch. What is coming is real. Let it in. Let us talk about what karmic repayment actually looks like in practical terms, because it is important to have eyes that can recognize it when it arrives, rather than waiting for a version that matches your imagination and missing the real thing entirely. It can look like a financial shift that comes from an unexpected direction, a relationship dynamic that has been stuck for months, suddenly moving toward resolution, an opportunity arriving through someone you barely know in a field you were about to give up on, a health situation improving in ways the doctors cannot fully explain, a creative block dissolving overnight after months of silence, a conflict that has been draining your energy simply ending, not dramatically, not with fanfare. Just a quiet, solid, permanent resolution that leaves you feeling lighter than you have felt and longer than you can remember. It can also look internal, a sudden peace about something that has been troubling you for a long time, a clarity about your own worth that does not depend on external validation for the first time. A morning where you wake up and the weight that has been sitting on your chest for months is simply gone. Not because the outer circumstances changed overnight, but because something in the energetic structure of your situation has shifted at a level deeper than the visible. These internal payments are often the most significant ones, because they do not just change one circumstance, they change the frequency from which you approach every circumstance going forward. And that is the real gift that this week is carrying for you. Here's what you need to do to make sure you actually receive what is being sent. First, stop rehearsing the disappointment. Your nervous system has been trained through repeated difficult experiences to protect you by expecting the worst. That protection served you when you needed it, but right now it is a barrier. The energy of receptivity requires a certain degree of openness that bracing for impact makes impossible. You do not have to be naive. You do not have to pretend the hard things did not happen. But you do have to create at least a crack of genuine openness, a willingness to let something good land without immediately explaining it away. Second, acknowledge what you survived. Not with drama, not with a performance of suffering, but with honest, private recognition of the fact that what you carried was real, it was heavy, and you carried it anyway. There is something about that acknowledgement that completes a circuit in the karmic structure. The universe can return what it owes more cleanly when you are no longer using all your energy to minimize what you went through. You earned this return. You do not have to be humble about that. You can say quietly and clearly, I did the work. I stayed the course. I chose integrity when it cost me. And now I am ready to receive what that choice built. Third, and this is the most practical instruction, pay close attention to what arrives this week that feels slightly too good to be ordinary. The unexpected call, the unsolicited offer, the conversation that takes an inexplicably positive turn, the gut feeling that something is finally moving in the right direction. These are not coincidences. They are not accidents. They are the first installments of a payment that the universe has been preparing for longer than you know. Treat them with the seriousness they deserve. Follow up on them. Say yes to them. Do not let the habit of diminishing good things cause you to leave what is already arriving on the table. You were not put through everything you went through so that the story could end in depletion. That was never the arc. The difficulty was the preparation. The endurance was the qualification. And the patience, the quiet, costly, often lonely patience, was the investment that is now maturing into return. The universe does not waste what is genuinely meant. It does not forget what was given without guarantee of reward. And it does not close a cycle without delivering what was promised. Even when the promise was never spoken out loud, only felt as a deep inner knowing that somehow, someday, this would all mean something. That day is not someday anymore. That day is now. Comment below. I am ready to receive what I have earned. Like this video if you have been enduring quietly and waiting longer than most people would. Share this with someone who has been going through a long and difficult stretch and needs to be reminded that the universe keeps its accounts and that their patience has not been in vain. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone you love is remind them that their season of return is closer than they think. What the universe owes you, it always delivers, and it never arrives late. There is one final truth about karmic repayment that almost no one talks about, and it is perhaps the most important piece of all. When the return begins to arrive, it will ask something of you that might feel counterintuitive after everything you have been through. It will ask you to believe you deserve it, not performatively, not with practiced affirmations you do not fully feel, with the genuine, bone-deep recognition that you are not receiving charity, luck, or a random accident of fate. You are receiving a direct return on something real that you invested. You are receiving what the universe calculated you were owed, and receiving it fully, without guilt, without the compulsion to immediately give it all away, without shrinking it to a size that feels safer, is part of completing the karmic cycle properly. Because here is what many people who have been through prolonged difficulty do not realize. The habit of surviving can become its own kind of trap. When you have been in survival mode for a long time, receiving abundance, of love, of resources, of recognition, of ease, can actually feel wrong. It can feel suspicious. It can trigger the very defenses that protected you during the hard season, even though those defenses are no longer necessary. The shift from surviving to thriving is not automatic. It requires a conscious decision to update your inner blueprint, to tell yourself with full sincerity that the chapter of lack and endurance is closing and the chapter of return and flourishing is opening. That decision is yours to make, and this week is the perfect moment to make it. Do not wait for perfect certainty before you allow yourself to receive. Certainty follows reception. It does not precede it. Open your hands first. The rest will follow.